Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a topic that literally touches every single space you live, work, eat, and breathe in. And yet, it's something most of us barely even think about until it's done wrong. We're talking about interior lighting. And I don't just mean, flipping a switch so you don't trip over your coffee table. I mean the profound art and science of using light to transform a physical space, to tell a compelling story, and to actually make people feel something. We're going to explore some truly transformative insights drawn directly from a fascinating book called Interior Lighting, edited by Darren. Trust me, by the end of this, it's going to completely change the way you look at every room you walk into. All right, let's actually start with a quick little exercise. I want you to just take a look around your immediate surroundings right now. Look at the light sources. What kind of emotional response is the lighting in your current room creating for you? Most of us operate under this really basic assumption that lighting is purely a functional utility, right? You need to see, so you turn on a light. Boom, done. But real, intentional lighting design begins with asking what you want people to feel. Only after you figure out that emotional intent do you actually go and choose your light fixtures. And when you see the exact same room lit in two completely different ways, it honestly illustrates perfectly why that emotional intent matters so much. Same room, different light. Completely different life. One setup might feel incredibly flat, maybe even a little sterile, but change the lighting and suddenly it's inviting, it's warm, it has real dimension. This demonstrates the core foundation of Darren's book. Interior lighting doesn't just do one single job. It actually serves three distinct purposes. First, illumination, but then comes enrichment, and finally, atmosphere. Once you really understand that triad, you'll literally never look at a light bulb the same way again. Which brings us to our first main concept, Section 1, Beyond the Light Switch. And that flows perfectly into Section 2, the language of light. So to truly move beyond just the basic light switch and understand this kind of expressive illumination, we have to talk about application efficiency. Lighting engineer George Bosson points out a massive misconception we all have. People completely obsess over the raw lumen output of a bare bulb. Sure, a bare bulb is technically 100% efficient at throwing light absolutely everywhere. But come on, you would never hang a blinding bare bulb over a romantic dinner table and call it efficient design. The design has to efficiently serve the human experience. Italian lighting designer Francesca Storaro introduces this beautiful philosophy for it. She describes light as an expressive language, stating, "A lighting designer uses light and shadow to communicate emotion, history, and culture." Just like a composer uses musical notes, colors in lighting aren't just technical measurements of warm or cool. They are the expressive, symbolic building blocks of this entire language. Choosing a specific rich amber hue or a crisp moonlight blue can literally make ancient architecture feel alive and pulsating with history, or it can make a modern space feel incredibly sleek and forward-looking. Storaro actually breaks this language down into three distinct levels of architectural lighting. Level 1 is lighting to show. This is your basic illumination just so you can see where you're walking. Level 2 is architectural lighting. This is where you start using light to actually reveal the structural character of the building itself. And then at the absolute peak, we have level 3, communicative lighting. This is pure storytelling. At this highest level, lighting design gives a building a completely different, independent identity the second the sun goes down. This idea of communicative lighting is just so incredibly cool. It's the concept that architecture speaks twice, once in daylight and once in light. Think about sweeping architectural curves or the dramatic, intricate details of a massive ceiling and columns. They are given this rich, theatrical double life. In daylight, a space like that probably looks amazing, sure, but at night, the communicative lighting literally sculpts the space from scratch, turning it into an entirely different, fully immersive experience. So let's get practical in Section 3, Shaping Spaces with Light. How do we actually use this language to shape the physical spaces we use every single day? Well, whether you're designing a cozy little living room, a high-end restaurant, or a massive hotel lobby, there are three core spatial functions of interior lighting that apply pretty much universally. First is enriching. This is all about using contrasts of light and dark to add depth, order, and visual rhythm to a room. And I love this point from the book. Enriching a space with light is unbelievably environmentally friendly. Why? Because it connects and transforms the room without adding physical mass. You don't need to build more walls or buy huge pieces of furniture to change the vibe. Second is partitioning, which means defining different zones, like keeping a busy bar feeling separate from a quiet dining area without putting up physical dividers.
And third is highlighting, which is dramatically drawing the human eye to one specific focal point.
Let's zoom in on highlighting for a second. Imagine a quiet little reading nook. Great lighting here isn't about just blasting the corner with brightness. It's actually all about contrast. By illuminating one specific area, like an armchair and a good book, more than everything else around it, your brain naturally does the rest of the work. Your eye is instantly drawn to the warmth of that seat. The shadows around it, they aren't a mistake at all. They are intentionally framing that light, creating a dramatic, focused, and deeply intimate space.
And then we have partitioning in a commercial setting. This specific concept is heavily championed by Takeshi Sano, who is a really renowned Japanese interior designer. Think about how a busy dining floor needs strategic, intimate focal lighting, right? Not chaotic, scattered light sources that make customers feel like they're sitting awkwardly on a brightly lit stage. Good lighting literally partitions the tables into their own private little worlds, even though they're all physically sitting in the exact same large room.
Sano actually uses very specific, highly human-centered rules to dictate this kind of commercial partitioning. Kitchens, for instance, absolutely require brightness so cooks can properly assess food quality. But, and this is key, that bright clinical light shouldn't spill over and ruin the mood of the dining area. Dining floors, as we just talked about, need that intimacy. And restrooms, they require soft, flattering light. As Sano brilliantly puts it, the ultimate goal is for people to find themselves charming when they look in the mirrors. It's a psychological approach just as much as an architectural one. That takes us perfectly into Section 4, the psychology of sight. Spanish lighting designer Rafael Gallego provides some genuinely incredible insights into the cerebral and unconscious dimensions of how we process vision. It explains why lighting impacts us so profoundly on a physical level. Get ready for a totally mind-blowing statistic. For a person with normal vision, over 70% of all the information they receive comes through sight. But here's the real kicker. The vast majority of that visual information is processed entirely unconsciously. We are constantly registering light, shadow, contrast, and color without even realizing it. That means lighting design isn't just about what people consciously look at, it's heavily about what they feel without knowing why. It is literally the reason a dimly lit lounge makes you instinctively lower your voice. And this unconscious processing directly wires into our biology through what's called the circadian effect. Scientists recently discovered a new photoreceptor in our retina that specifically helps regulate our biological clock. And it does it based entirely on the light's color temperature and spectral composition. Warm evening light and cool, crisp morning light aren't just, aesthetic preferences that happen to look pretty. No, they are hard biological triggers that fundamentally affect our productivity, our energy levels, and our overall health. Because of all this, the absolute crucial point is that to successfully manage light, you must also manage the dark. Shadow is not the absence of design. Let me repeat that. It is a critical part of the design itself. If a room is just a uniform blast of bright light, it feels overwhelming and totally unnatural. Shadows create curiosity. They intentionally hide certain things to reveal others, basically inviting the human brain to engage with the space and imagine what isn't fully seen. And that leads us to our final part today, Section 5, the science of efficiency. We've talked a lot about art, emotion, and human biology, but we absolutely have to anchor this in hard science and engineering, because, let's be real, none of this works if it's massively wasteful. Modern LED technology brings an unprecedented level of precision and, crucially, minimal heat output. This is an absolute game changer, particularly in places like museums and sacred spaces, where you need to brightly illuminate ancient frescoes and delicate artworks without the heat damage you'd get from traditional bulbs. To actually measure this modern efficiency, the industry uses LPD, or lighting power density. Remember earlier when we talked about the blinding bare bulb? LPD is the true measure of a system's efficiency. It steps back and assesses how efficiently the entire application, the whole room's layout, achieves its emotional and practical design goals rather than just measuring a single bulb's raw blinding output. A beautifully designed lighting application can achieve maximum visual quality and stunning atmosphere at a fraction of the energy cost of a poorly designed one. So how do we actually ensure that quality on a technical level? By adhering to strict metrics. The Color Rendering Index, or CRI, needs to be above 80 for spaces where human interaction happens. That ensures skin tones and food look natural and vibrant, not washed out. We also need strict luminous intensity limits to prevent exhausting, harsh glare. And we need proper spacing criteria to avoid a chaotic patchwork of bright and dark spots all over the floor. These metrics prove the central driving argument of Darren's book. Beautiful, deeply emotional lighting and hard mathematical energy efficiency are definitely not enemies. Actually, they go hand in hand perfectly. So, we've seen how light acts as an expressive language, how it shapes spaces without needing any physical walls, and how it quietly speaks directly to our biology. Lighting really is the element that breathes life into a space. It connects the hard, cold architecture to raw human emotion. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Take one more look at the space you're sitting in right now. If lighting is a language, what story is the lighting in your room telling you right now? Does it maybe need a rewrite? If you're as intrigued by this as I am, I highly recommend checking out the sources from Darren's book to explore this fascinating world even further. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.